This is NNI Bites, Big Learnings, a podcast where fellow healthcare professionals converse about the latest in nutrition science. We are joined by the chairs and speakers of NNI and WNSC Workshop 103 as they share practical insights on early life nutrition and its impact on children's long-term well-being.
Hello and welcome to the Nestle Nutrition Institute special podcast, NNI Bites, Big Learnings. I am Raanan Shamir, your host for today, and I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Natália Ferré from the Universitat Rovira i Virgili and the Institut d'Investigació Sanitària Pere Virgili in Spain. Dr. Ferré's research is focused on pediatric nutrition, especially early childhood growth and metabolic health, particularly in relation to dietary protein intake.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
And it is our pleasure as well. So, Dr. Ferré, could you start with a quick background of the concepts, early metabolic programming and the early protein hypothesis, which have inspired many studies and trials such as the CHOP and now the ToMI study?
Yes, of course. The early metabolic programming hypothesis suggests that there are several factors during the early life, since the very beginning, that can modulate and the later health, and they may exert long-term effects. And these factors can produce epigenetic and changes and adaptations through the fetal development, and maybe also during the first months of life that can result in increase or a reduction of the risk of developing several diseases like obesity, cardiovascular diseases, hypertension, or diabetes, or something like that. And this is because the capacity of adaptation of the fetus and also the infant are much higher than the other capability of adaptation of an adult.
Okay, thank you.
And the early yeah. you asked me also about the early one of these factors is, of course, nutrition of the mother during the pregnancy and maybe before, and nutrition, of course, of the baby during the first month of life. And the early protein hypothesis suggests that a higher protein intake during the first months of life is related with a higher weight gain and a rapid growth. And we know that a rapid growth is associated with later obesity risk. So this is the early protein hypothesis.
Okay. And going to the methodology of the ToMI study, how was it built upon previous research like the CHOP trial?
It was completely linked because both the studies were designed to demonstrate the early protein hypothesis. And with the CHOP study, we did it, and it was a multi-center study that recruited newborns and that were randomized to consume either a lower protein content or a higher protein content during the first years of life. And in the ToMI trial, we try to know, or we try to investigate if the critical window of this opportunity for intervention can be extended to the second year. So in ToMI trial, there are 1-year-old toddlers, the ones who were randomized to consume a young child formula with higher or lower protein content, but it's the same rationale behind the both studies.
And can you describe the key findings and their implication on later childhood and metabolic health?
Yeah, as I said, with the CHOP study, we demonstrated that the consumption of a lower content of protein infant formula was associated with a reduction of the rapid growth and also with a reduction of the obesity risk. And for example, at 6 years old of age, those infants belonging to the higher protein group showed obesity prevention that was about 2.5 times higher than the ones in the lower protein group. And with the ToMI trial, the first results seems to demonstrate that there are a transient reduction of the body mass index at 18 months that is not maintained at 2 years of age. But those are the first results, and we should go deeply into all the data we collected, because we have a lot of possible confounding factors that can be addressed also, and we need to analyze deeply all the results.
We discussed during the lecture the issue of whether it's lower protein or higher fat, because it always goes in combination. But let's assume that it is the protein that is driving it, and that was the finding at the CHOP study, that BMI was more optimal with the lower protein content. What are the findings in the ToMI study adding to what we know from the CHOP study?
The idea is, or the findings that can add is that we will have an answer, and we will know if finally the critical window can be extended to the second year of age or not, reducing this protein content. Of course, the second year of life is a moment when infants still, it's a good opportunity to develop healthy habits also, but specifically the ToMI trial will answer if the reduction of milk protein intake will also have an effect of the reduction in the later obesity.
Okay, and looking ahead, what are the next steps for the ToMI study, and what broader insight might it offer for obesity prevention strategies?
The next steps, as I said, are to go deeply into the results, and we are focusing, for example, in analyzing the macronutrient intakes in those infants, because maybe these different differences in intakes can partially explain the effect of intervention in different groups. We are also looking at the results of to analyze the results of the long-term effects at 6 years of age, because these infants were followed until they were 6 years. So the primary outcome was the body mass index at 2 years, but we are following these infants, and we will look for their results. And also we are interested in look at the results of the analysis of the epigenetics, metabolomics, and proteomics measurements that we performed in all the samples we collected, and also to take into account a lot of different clinical outcomes, not just the body mass index, because body mass index is related with weight, and weight doesn't say all. So,
okay, thank you. So, Dr. Ferré, we really thank you for sharing these valuable insights. And thank you to our listeners for joining us on NNI Bites Big Learnings. Stay tuned for more conversations on the latest in science, nutrition, and pediatric care.
Thank you to all of you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
And that concludes today's episode. Thank you for joining us for this special episode from NNI and WNSC Workshop 103. We hope you enjoyed and learned from this quick discussion, fellow experts. Till the next episode.